Good evening, viewers. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACTN. I'm George, alongside my co-host
Maria. Good evening.
And we are here again with you. We always here between the hours of 8 and 9. And before I go any further, let me say, first of all, condolences to prison officer Ricky Sudin on the passing of his mom. Mr. Sudin is one of the prison officers who is very much instrumental alongside Clayton Morris and the futsal program inside the MSP and the various prisons. So again, to Mr. Sudin, condolences on the passing of your mother. Over the last couple of weeks or so, you have seen here on ACT, and we have been really trying to highlight the sport of rugby, because we felt that rugby, the last couple of months, we have seen the advancement and the achievements in the sport of rugby, and we felt it necessary to give them an air. As you know, ACTN, we like to, showcase sports that we feel that is not getting the relevant airplay that is needed. And again, sometimes she blushes a lot, but thanks to Maria for me getting involved, so deeply involved in the sport of rugby, that we are trying to highlight all the different aspects of rugby. And on today's show, we're going to be discussing schools rugby. And we have, let me make sure I can pronounce the name properly, Quanese John.
Yes.
The executive member of the school rugby union and the only female on that board, from what my information. Also a former national player, and she now heads the Rugby America North program. Quanese, it's a pleasure. Welcome to ACTN.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Before we get into the aspects of the school rugby and what's your involvement, tell us a bit about you as a former player, how you got into the sport, and well, we see where the sport have brought you to at this point in time. Yeah. So take us on a little journey.
So it started at 15 years old at St. Francis Girls College. I vividly recall having a phone call with my mom, who lived in England at the time, telling her that I wanted to model. And as a model herself, she said, well, I'm not there, so I don't want you modeling. So I said, okay, I'm going to join the next sport that comes into school. The football team was already established, etc. So I needed to get into something new and something that is now starting. And the next sport was rugby. Miss Kitty Andrew, now Mrs. Nero, came into school, and she said she wanted to start a rugby team, and I was like, okay, I'm here for it. And the rest is literally history. And so from school, I Orleans Rugby Football Club, and it's because she was also a coach there, so it was just inevitable that I joined that club. And I played there for a few years, and I remember going to try for the national women's team. And
that was at what age?
16, 17. So 2 years in, I wanted to. I was playing, and there was national trials, and I went in, and I got declined. I got like, no, you're not necessarily that you're not good enough, but you didn't make the decline. And I think that's where my determination for the sport developed, because I thought I was good enough. How come? And I just went back to the drawing board and worked really hard, and became fitter. I'm from St. Barb's, so that hill became my playground, and developed, my strength by doing the hills, etc. And doing the savannas, because it's right down the road from the savannah. And I developed as a player through that, and guidance through my coaches at Orleans as well. And from the national team at 19 or so, I got injured. It was a knee injury, and I had to sit out a year. And during that year, I got involved in coaching. And from coaching, I got involved as a youth development officer at the club. And at that time, I was coaching boys. Yeah, 19-year-old coaching 14-year-old boys. But it was a challenge, and one that I accepted. And then I realized that I wasn't, I was one of the youngest girls in the sport, and there wasn't anybody coming up behind me. And I was saying, no. If I'm coaching, I'm going to get involved in coaching girls. And, you know, at Royalians, they were very supportive of the women's game, and they're still very supportive of the women's game. And I got involved I started coaching at several girls' schools on different days. And I pitched to the club, let's host a tournament for them so that they could play competitively. And that went for a series of 4 almost festival type days. So we had tents, music, you know. Although I was coaching all the girls' schools, I got my club members, girls, both males and females actually, to adopt a school on the day. So I could.
I was about to ask you how you're going to.
Yeah, no. So I got the club members to adopt a school on the day, and so they worked with them for an hour before, so they familiarized themselves, and then they went out and played. And from there, honestly, my career in sport and the development of the women's game and women in sports spiraled upward, and it's continued to spiral
So
upward.
you basically come like one of the pioneers of the women rugby.
I won't necessarily say a pioneer, because there were people involved in the women's game before me.
But you more or less advance it.
I think I
with
build
the schools.
on
I'm talking about the schools, really.
No, I think I build on their foundation.
Okay.
Because I'm also a student of sports, so I studied at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and I studied development. So in having that understanding of development, I understood and knowing the history and the attempts that were made to get schoolgirls involved and schools involved in rugby, especially female schools. I understood the errors that were made, and I understood the errors that were made then, and I aimed at not making the same mistake and build something upon what they've started.
Okay.
So Boone Ross was, I know he started with schools as well as Kitty Andrews. So those are the 2 persons that I know that started schools rugby before me, and also Brian O'Farrell, who's with the male schools.
Now, we've seen the Schoolgirls League is going on right now.
Yes.
I know a lot of people have even mentioned to me that they've seen rugby going on in the Savannah. I attended some games that were there just recently in the past week.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of those advancements and games that are going on?
Yeah, so what happened, the development of the Schoolgirls League, we were under the umbrella of Royalians Rugby Football Club, but we understood that it's not Royalians, Royalians thing. It has to be a national program. And we lobbied with the schools union to adopt the program. And that's one of the catalysts for me being on the executive of the schools union, to ensure that the women's game is respected and given that air. Because sometimes it can be overlooked by, just by history or, people's preference, and, the idea that there isn't an interest to grow the women's game. So being on the executive, I was able to give the schools a voice, schoolgirls a voice, and help develop the women's game at the grassroots level. So now that the schools union has adopted the program, we run a 6-week league from January, usually between January and April, to ensure that there's competition for the girls to play. And that's what you would have seen going on at the moment. One of the things that the schools union usually do as well is that we host international schools, usually from Canada and sometimes US, during this period. So it is an opportunity for the girls to play international competition and gauge themselves against, girls and boys, actually, girls and boys in their age group.
Because you all had some two foreign teams here recently.
Yeah, so Dr. Best Secondary School from BC, Canada. We hosted them, and they had a male 15 team and girls 7.
Coming out of that, how successful would you say, or how beneficial it was for the local players who were involved in that competition?
I think they were up for the challenge. The girls were a bit bigger than them, but they honestly did not back down. They were assertive and they understood their strength, which is their agility and pace. So that is something that they capitalize on in the game. They would have gained a lot of experience from it because in the last year, we introduced a contact league, which is the first in the history, because what happened before is that the young girls were just playing women's open, and from the looks of it, it usually leads to a high dropout rate, because then if I'm not competitive against the woman, then what sense does it make? So the idea of introducing the under 18 girls was to help them play in their age group and help them build up confidence and skill level. And that was introduced last year for the first time. And through that, they were able to really match up with the girls from BC, Canada. So, yeah.
So this league then would lead directly into club rugby as well as the national team?
So indirectly, what happened, or maybe it was planned, is that the girls league ran between September and December. And what we found is that we weren't attracting girls at that period of time, as well as our coaching staff had to split because of the low volunteer base we have. I mean, very hardworking, but it's just a few of us in the field. Their attention was split between the boys and girls during September and December. And also there was a cost gap, because some girls, parents, because it's rugby, they do not necessarily invest in, because she's not going to stay is usually the attitude. It was my parents' attitude, right? She's not going to stay. So so during September, December is the rainy season, so it was wet. So they couldn't afford togs, etc. So we decided that we're going to change the league to January. January to March was a bit drier. And they didn't have, they all have sneakers, so just come and train in their sneakers, run in their sneakers. And what that did, change in it, actually created a cycle. So after they played touch rugby during January and April, they get exposed to the game. Then from May to June, July, they get introduced to contact rugby. And during that time is where they get more physical preparation for the contact game, which leads us into the TTRFU cycle of competition, which is from July to December. So they play contact, right? And during that time, the schools do bring from December to play in January to March. So it's a well worked out cycle to ensure that there is constant rugby being played for the girls. And what we have seen is that once an athlete goes through at least 2 cycles, they are more receptive to playing the contact game. Parents are more committed and do the investment, so they buy the togs, they buy the mouth guard, etc. for them. And the girls are a lot more confident when it comes into the contact game, because they would have fallen in love with the game during the touch.
So you're seeing a greater interest in the sport?
Yeah, definitely. A greater interest, as well as we work really hard with our coaches. So we have meetings at least once a month with our coaches to work out the kinks with them. What are the challenges they're having with their girls? Let's support each other and provide.
And what are some of the challenges you're facing right now?
Some of the challenges is really confidence in the girls. So there's the confidence in them to try something new, to believe in themselves that they are doing this and they can do it. You know, the challenges of parents sometimes saying, okay, parents, this is non-contact. You know, you might get a twist ankle, you could get out walking down the stairs. You know, so try to get the parents to understand that it's a non-contact and the risk of injury is minimum, especially at the time of preparation, the time taken for preparation and time taken for them to play. We pay very particular attention because we understand from the lessons learned that we need to prepare the athlete. Even if it's such, we need to prepare them because the athletes aren't coming, both male and female, they aren't coming very athletic. You know,
Really?
so we have to teach girls and boys how to run. We have to help them with their coordination and flexibility. And it's something that we're paying particular attention to ensure that the athletes have a really good time learning the sport and that we expose them to healthy relationships and the basics for having a healthy lifestyle. Because one of the things we pride ourselves on is that when they're finished with rugby, which sometimes they don't go on to play contact, but they would have had an experience playing non-contact rugby and understanding the dynamics of leading a healthy lifestyle and the importance of that. Yeah.
Well, we got to take a break. I know when we come back,
sure.
Maria, have a tons of questions for you. Yes,
Okay.
you are looking at Scoreboard on ACTN. We'll be right back after the short break.
You're now changing your question.
What I would say, Steve, is this.
My first question was, and roll back that tape.
I made my debut for Crystal Palace against Tottenham Hotspur.
My responsibility was to get the ball and make things happen offensively.
In all the time we've played together, I've always been the decoy.
Welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACT, and it's always a pleasure to be in your company every Tuesday evening between the hours of 8 and 9.
Welcome to the new season of Football 101. I am your host, Joshua Matos.
Well, it's time for your weekly football news update. I love you, Messi.
Unfortunately, kiss the badge, Oh, what's that? Welcome to this edition of the interview, and as you can see, I'm not alone on the set. I have Marcus, a Liverpool fan, and I have Shakir.
Welcome back. You are watching Scoreboard on ACTN. We're here with Quanice John, and I am very excited to be able to converse with Quanice and hear about her experiences in rugby. She is an excellent example of a person who started playing rugby young and has really taken advantage of every opportunity. And even as we heard earlier in the show, some of the things that didn't seem like opportunities, and she took those and she made the most of them.
Yes.
Quanice, you were mentioning that a lot of athletes that are coming, when they become interested in playing a sport, say at 13, 14, 15, they're coming without any athletic skills or the physical literacy that you'd like to see at that point. What sort of things are happening right now to help counteract that?
Well, the long-term, where you're going is the long-term athlete development program or plan that we've studied and really adopted in the development of the school girls program, because I'm the administrator of that. So you find me speaking a lot about, a lot about what we put in place with the girls program. So the first thing we needed to do, and we did, and we continue to do, is educate our coaches and our volunteers about the importance of the understanding the athletes at that age and being able to assess them as well. So our head coach, the national women's coach, Carlton Felix, he did a program with ICEP, and his project was a long-term athlete development program for the national program, national women's program. And he has been instrumental in educating our coaches about the process, understanding that the athlete's first year or 2 years in the sport should be focused on the fundamentals, and fun in capital letters, in understanding that you know, the athletes or persons who's interested in sport are coming in less athletic. That, you know, sometimes they confuse left with right. You know, they can't go through ladders. They don't know the difference between a hop and a jump. And even some of our coaches aren't aware of the difference. So when they come, that's our first protocol to educate our coaches on, okay, this is a hop and this is a jump. If you see the child walking like they have 2 left foot, it means that they need more flexibility in the hips, etc. So we take our time with developing our coaches and our athletes. We make sure that it's fun, it's competitive, yes, but it's competing against your last performance.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what the emphasis on.
Because competition is with yourself.
Yes, because we understand that sport is an opportunity for continuous improvement. So we encourage the athletes to think, okay, I'm not good at it now, but with practice, we'll get better.
Right.
So that's one of the things we continue to do with our coaches, and we also check up on our coaches as well. So we would visit their sessions and see what their session is like, and if they're sticking to the protocol that we've designed for them.
So I'm hearing that the program is very dynamic. I'm trying to keep it straight. I don't know if it follows a straight line at all. So maybe you have to think of outside the box a little bit more. So you have Schools Union, which encompasses all of the schools in Trinidad and Tobago.
No.
So
I'm being corrected already.
Yes. So what has happened is that the Schools Union is most of the schools that are in the Schools League are in Port of Spain. What we've experienced is that different parts of the country, different dynamics with introducing the sport. So in South Trinidad, Rainbow and Gasparillo Exiles has found more success going into communities as opposed to going to the schools. Whereas in Port of Spain, we found more success going into the schools than going into the communities.
But do you think that there are schools in South, if given the opportunity, will get into rugby?
Of course. I can't say that they won't. However, we would have to develop more volunteers or get people putting their hands up to, I want to be a rugby coach. Providing that is, done, we have the capacity within the union to train coaches. So I'm an educator as well as Bullet Hunter is an educator. So if a school wants rugby at their school, because like currently I'm in Shaguana's Presentation College.
Well, at least you come closer to something.
Right? I'm in Shaguana's Presentation College, where a teacher contacted me to come and help his boys do an SBA on rugby. When I went, they had no idea what rugby was. And within 2 sessions, they were playing non-contact rugby. So there is the opportunity for schools to get involved. However, we would need the schools to reach out to us and tell us that there's an interest. and we would make ourselves available to.
But do
to
the schools?
develop.
But do the schools in South aware of that?
Are there? Maybe we're not doing a very good job of highlighting that opportunity, and it may be because the resources are thin. So we need more persons putting their hands up again because it's volunteer based. Most in Port of Spain and all around Trinidad, except for our YDOs, youth development officers, they are the only ones who are paid to get into schools, etc. But everybody else is volunteer. And to be a volunteer, you must have that passion.
Yeah.
And that drive
and
commitment, But with the Get Into Rugby program, we have modeled it for a 6-week period. So ideally, we don't need someone to commit more than 6 weeks at a time to run a program as such, And as what we found is that when we give someone an opportunity to volunteer for that 6 weeks, it's like, I really enjoyed my time. I really enjoyed my time. And we want to do it for longer. So
what I was trying to get into, because you said that Exiles and Rainbow, they do a lot of work in the communities, right?
Yes.
Now, when they go to the communities and they get the young people interested in the sport of rugby, right? Let's say 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, right? Some of these young people might still be at school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is what I'm looking at, they might want their school. I mean, one person could go and encourage a whole school to get involved in rugby.
Yeah. Yes.
But do you see in the near future you are reaching out to one or two schools in South and getting them involved in the sport?
Yes, we've had coaches in South who've been at schools in South. One of the challenges with having them travel to North to play, it would take some time.
Unless you get a pool in South where you can keep a league and then maybe have a finals or something. Yeah.
So, the development process is one that takes years to develop. There is a keen interest in growing and spreading the game throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And, with the new model that the TTRFU has adopted, with their spread of youth development officers, we will see within the next 2 or 3 years the results of it. And I think that, or I know that it will take some time, and we have to be patient with the process, and we would see the fruits bear soon enough.
So what sort of things you talked about, the coaches and the support, are there other things that are happening within the schools union in the North region where the focus has been that you think would be able to be implemented or to complement what the YDOs are doing? How can that support be there to help that growth?
I believe what has happened in Port of Spain is a model that can be used throughout Trinidad and Tobago through the YDOs. Again, it's a model that works world over, and it's a model where it helps retain players. And it is the same model that we are using with the girls. Right. So you keep them, you have 6 weeks prior preparation, 6-week competition, rest, 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it's basically a 6-week cycle where you can actually gauge the athlete's progress. And I think once the model is adopted, you would have variations, okay? You might want to run it for 2 months, or you may want to run it for 3 months at a time, right? But the idea is that with the short attention span of our athletes, this is world over. We're talking about a new breed of athletes. We're talking about new concentration levels, etc. It's no longer, these athletes are not going to train 1 year to play 1 game or in 1 league. They're not going to do it. So if that's where we're thinking or we're trying to use that model, it's not going to work. You're going to get frustrated. The coach is going to get frustrated. The athletes are just going to say this thing boring. If it isn't,
ongoing.
you're going to lose them.
So it's necessary to have the games and, well, you said the festivals. It sounds like this is something that is more than just training and coming to a game, but a festival is more of a gathering of people and skill sets and learning.
Yes. So with the festivals or the festival model is that instead of playing one game on the weekend against one team and waiting another week to play, at the festival, all the team gathers and you play all the teams on that day.
Yeah, a number of,
right?
Yeah.
And you have that once a month. So they know when they play this, they have, whether they win 2 games or lose 3 games, whatever the outcome of the festival is, you encourage the athletes to do better next festival. So you get them more committed to training because they know that, okay, they have 3 weeks to prepare to do better at the other festival. So, and what it encourages a community of a more cohesive community, because they see everybody who's playing, so they don't feel so alone in playing the sport. They see everybody from all over coming to play, and they make friends. And what I find we forget is why we play sports. We play sport to have fun. We play sport to be with friends. We play sport to feel better about ourselves. It's really not about winning. And at the youth level, I think that should be our concentration.
You need to tell some of our coaches that.
Yes, I mean, the thing about it is, it is challenging because as a nation, we're so competitive in sport. You know, we're really competitive in sport, and we really have to provide, emphasize that at the youth level, it don't have to be that competitive.
Well, one of the challenges that has been highlighted is actually meeting fixtures and having enough people to play games. And it sounds like this festival, even though rather than having a game every weekend, it's one weekend out of the month, but you're guaranteed, win or lose, you will get to play.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that's really positive, and I'm happy to hear that, because I know from talking to people, cancellations, and if you didn't have enough players for a team, even transportation has been a discussion, traveling from either Tobago or from South.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's really anticlimactic.
Yeah, when you can't play. People train to play. People don't train to train. And the idea is that the children want to play. They're not concerned about drills and perfecting the pass. No, if you ask them, like, honestly, so why you play, is because, it challenges me, or are you concerned about winning? Not really. If you speak to the children, relax, they're really not concerned about winning. Not all of them, because there are some of them, depending on the cultural background, they come from a very competitive family. So yes, I want to win. But the majority, which is the 99.98% of them, aren't really that competitive. They just want to play. They just want to play. And at the youth level, I'm really working hard with our coaches as well. I work throughout the region. So throughout the region as well, I'm working with coaches to change the idea of competition for youth. The idea of competition for youth is improving their last performance, not winning a trophy.
Well, if you think about it, really, unless you have competed and bettered yourself, if your competition is inadequate or is so far above your level, then really it doesn't reflect the growth, or if you've won or been successful. Because if you, beat a team that has never played before, it doesn't mean that you're actually a very good team. It just means you were better than who showed up on the day.
Hold your thought for 1 second. We need to take a break. Viewers will be right back after this short break.
now changing your question.
What I would say, Steve, is this.
But my first question was, and roll back that tape.
I made my debut for Crystal Palace against Tottenham Hotspur.
My responsibility was to get the ball and make things happen offensively.
Only by not something.
In all the time we played together, I've always been the decoy.
Welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACT, and it's always a pleasure to be in your company every Tuesday evening between the hours of 8 and 9.
Welcome to the new season of Football 101. I am your host, Joshua Matos.
Well, it's time for your weekly football news update. Hello, Messi.
Unfortunately,
Kiss the badge, kiss the badge. Oh, what's that? Welcome to this edition of the interview, and as you can see, I'm not alone on the set. I have Marcus, a Liverpool fan, and I have Shakir.
All right, we're back here where we're discussing rugby and schools union with Juanice John. She has talked a lot about the development of the Schools Girls League, which she has definitely spearheaded and been a huge influence on so many women in rugby. You were beginning to tell us a little bit about the under-18 league that the national TTRFU has and the competition with the Commonwealth Youth Games.
Yeah. Is that in 2017, 2018, with the development of international competition for underage, the TTRFU had earmarked the qualifying games for the Youth Olympic Games, and out of that, an under-18 program developed, national program developed. Right. However, we were I say we because the TTRFU was unable to fully commit due to reasons beyond their control. I would assume, was unable to commit to the Las Vegas Games. So they still have the under-18 program, coming out of the Schools League. And so we no longer do the All-Star program because of that national program that has developed. Yeah.
And that program, where did the funding come from? I know there's a challenge that everyone brings up, and I know it would be a challenge in sending teams to various competitions. So if that being one of the deciding factors on attendance.
Well, I cannot speak for the TTRFU where funding for programs are concerned. I know that the schools union, if our all-star teams are to travel, the schools union raise the funds to take our teams. The boys have gone to Canada for the past 5 years or so, and the schools union would raise that money for the boys to travel. When the girls travel to Barbados, the schools union and the girls raise their money to go to Barbados, right? So what we've seen at the youth level is not so much a dependency on the union itself, the TTRFU, but we took the initiative to raise the funds.
That's good.
For our teams to travel.
So you move away from that dependency program where it's send in an application and hope.
Yes, and hope. Right? But we were fortunate. The schools union was fortunate with the girls program to get support from corporate Trinidad and Tobago to send the girls. Yeah, it was the first time we did it, so I think the novelty was, it was exciting for corporate Trinidad to get involved. And what we found is that when parents get involved, it's hella easier.
Yeah, it's easier. Yeah, it's easier.
Because
once you get the parents on board,
yes, it's
yeah.
easier because, you know, they understand the importance of it. They want to see their child do well, so they put an extra effort to help raise funds. It's even come on the management team to prepare the team to travel, etc. So we really have that support.
Because when you break down costs, when you break it down to each individual player or each individual that needs to go, it's not that much. When you look at it as in a lump sum, it's a ton of money to ask of anyone. But individually, you could say, okay, well, you could sponsor a player, you could have that interest that's invested. And if you look at the amount of money that people spend on whatever they want for themselves, it's really not that much of an investment to put into the program.
What's the long-term goal for the school rugby union?
So for the union, it's to provide opportunities for young persons to get introduced to rugby, to increase the awareness of rugby at the youth level. And of course, I would want to believe, and I'm speaking as a person on the executive, that we want to collaborate and work with the TTRFU in achieving their objective, which in the wider scale of things, to promote the game, promote and govern the game throughout Trinidad and Tobago. So while you know, we would do things we would meet our objectives, we want to ensure that it complements the TTRFU. It doesn't counter what the TTRFU is trying to achieve. And it is in that respect we work really, really hard, and our volunteers, I can't thank them enough, honestly. They work really, really hard. The girls' coaches, they have a standard to meet, because, you know, I expect, as the administrator, we expect a standard of coaching, a standard of decorum from them, because, you know, I understand, and I try to get them to understand that it's a product and we need people to buy into our product.
And I believe you also lead by example.
And we need to lead by example. So when the girls come in, we focus on developing their confidence as players. So we need to ensure that our coaches are confident. If how we ensure our coaches are confident, we educate and challenge them at our meetings. And so when they go back to their respective schools, you know, they know what they're doing. It's not, I wonder what to do. Because we get them accredited as a World Rugby Level 1 coach, where the emphasis is on planning sessions, and then we work on the soft skills, because coaching girls is very, very different from coaching boys. We have the self-esteem issues, we have the body issues, we have, you know, the challenge of, you know, picking up what can be considered a male-dominated sport. We have to sensitize them that you will get, that's a man's game while you playing that game. So we have to work on providing them with the answers to those questions. So when they're challenged in their social circles, it's really more than just teaching them to catch, pass, and run. You know, it's really developing their character and developing their character to be a upstanding citizen. And, you know, we have the challenges of young girls getting, well, what's the word, groomed, etc. So those are some of the challenges that we would have in coaching girls. And when we work with male coaches with the girls, we have a zero tolerance policy. You know, on the type of interactions you have. When you have, you know, we ensure that if they're discussing issues with the girls, that they don't do it by themselves. You know, because some children are more exposed than others and can put the coach in place,
yeah.
as we like to say,
Mhm,
you know, put the coach in place. So we try not to have very young male coaches working with the girls, and if we do have, we ensure that they stand our tests, basically.
Is there any the question I want to put to you is, in schools rugby,
Yeah.
besides just playing for the school, learning the sports and advancing to the national team, what isn't there for a young lady to achieve in rugby? Like maybe scholarships or things like that. Where can rugby take, you know?
I'm glad you brought up that question, because I think we have a misconception about scholarships and achieving scholarships in sport. In order to achieve a scholarship in sport, especially for rugby at this point in time, you have to be academically sound.
Well, basically all sports, really.
No,
Not all?
no. There's a misconception that you don't need to be academically sound to achieve a scholarship, because there's academic scholarship and there's sports scholarship.
Okay.
In rugby, we need to be academically sound first, then athletically strong to apply for the scholarships available.
Okay.
Right? Because we have 3 athletes from the schoolgirls program over the past 5 years that has achieved scholarships, but it was academic scholarships.
Okay.
When they go to their respective universities, they then get further scholarships through rugby.
Okay.
Right? So they play for their varsity teams, etc. So that is one of the key messages in parents and athletes who are interested in getting scholarship need to have grounded in their mind, right? With that as well, parents need to play a more active role if that is the route they want to go. It requires an investment in their child off the field to put themselves in a position to get these scholarships. So they're blessed children in the sense of they have the athletic prowess and what coaches are looking for in an athlete, including attitude, all right, which is a key component of, you know, getting a scholarship. The investment in strength and conditioning, because our game is a very physical game. And so we need the athletes to be strong. We as coaches can develop that, but we are limited by what we can do. Yeah? So because we don't have any coaches at this point in time who specializes in strength and conditioning. Yeah? If we need you we could get you strong enough to play. If you want to be strong enough for a scholarship, you need to invest with a strength and conditioning coach. And that is what the other sports are doing. So the other sports, athletic, when you see these athletes get a scholarship, it's not by chance. It's not because they're running a particular time. In order to run that particular time, parents have invested a whole lot of money with athletic trainers, physiotherapists, strength and conditioning coaches to get their athlete that way. And that is because the parents have an understanding of what it requires to get that scholarship.
I'm glad you explained that, because I'm sure that parents who might have their siblings in rugby might not have been aware of that.
Yeah.
You know, because we so like the scholarship,
Yes.
and we feel that, you know, if I'm on top of the game in rugby, I automatically deserve a scholarship. And I'm glad you brought that up. Any questions, Maria?
All right, well, I think that what you've said about the scholarship is something that sort of mirrors a lot about rugby, in that it isn't just the sport, and especially what you're doing with the School Girls Union, as well as the youth development on the whole, is developing good characters,
Yes.
good people, good citizens.
Yeah.
And and the game of rugby is a great example when you see all the things that go into the game on the pitch and how it can apply, even if by a metaphor, into life, and seeing that to get ahead in rugby with your coaching, with your training in the game, that these character values are so important, and that to take that further with whether it be a scholarship or playing when you're traveling with other teams, when you have opportunities to tour, all of these different things come down to your character and that strength of character, which really translates onto the pitch and when you're playing. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out, and to reiterate that, because I think that's where a lot of the passion and longevity comes from.
Yeah, so the idea behind it is that we have to, as a sport, we have to stay true to our values. And, you know, it's something that I can't stress enough that we emphasize with our coaches. It's about discipline, it's about respect, it's about integrity, it's about having passion, and it's really about the solidarity. And I think if our coaches embody that and understand what that means, then our athletes would exhibit and develop those character traits which set them above par other sports when they go out in their respective communities, whether it be work or school.
Within the 4 years the league has been running, is there a greater interest now? Every year you see more schools coming on board?
So yes. We've had we have fluctuations in the schools. So if we count how many schools that we've touched in our 6-year history, we go up to 14 schools. However, one of the challenges again remains the commitment of our volunteers time. Because, you know, our coaches in Port of Spain are young, so it's almost like their gap year. So they finish school at 17. So between 18 and 19, they volunteer with us, and they adopt a school, and they get training as a coach. They, you know, they coach a school, they enter the league. What happens then? Life happens. So parents down their throats get a job, or you know,
so eventually
they go off to university. They can't commit as much time to the coaching, etc. So we really have that fluctuation as a result of that. We are trying to you know, work that out. It's a huge challenge for us, but we've always found that turnover of coaches.
Is that a component in the long-term athlete development that is considered?
Where we focus on the coaches?
I know we spoke with having younger students or athletes reaching the students earlier to develop the physical skills. But when you mentioned the gap year, it kind of triggered for me that, okay, well, if there's a gap in the pathway, how is that? If long-term athlete development would say you want to start from young, but you want to continue long-term.
Right.
So how does that factor into the pathway?
So when for the pathway, we focus on the athlete development. The reference with the gap year was referring to the athletes who've just finished school to get back into their school to coach.
Okay.
But it doesn't stop them from playing rugby.
Okay.
So they still continue along the pathway, whether it be at their under-19 team, or they're now on the fringes of their club team.
All right.
Right? So where the gap year is, when I reference the gap year, I'm referencing that period between them finishing school and them finding a job.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a good opportunity for them to then increase their skills and,
Yes.
and develop
Well,
more.
expand their skills. So recently we had International Women's Week celebration. So to say, we had coaches who were part of the Girls League. They're in university, and they did the level 1 coaching, and they're now back into schools coaching.
Right.
You know, so it's again, it's about increasing awareness. It's about challenging them and developing them as well, because sometimes they don't know they have that talent to coach, or they don't know they have that talent to continue playing. And if I find that they're dropping off of playing, I try to get them involved in other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Quanis, we have really and truly enjoyed the last couple of minutes with you. We want to wish you all the best as you continue in your career as program manager, and we hope that by the next year or the year after, we'll see a lot more schools in South hosting rugby, and it's going to be competitive North-South, and it's going to be a huge success.
Yes,
Thank you. But again, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the volunteers that is committed, because I mean, in this time, everybody wants to find out money.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you, Maria. Thanks again for sharing this hour with us.
Pleasure to be here as always.
Right. So, viewers, we have come to the end of an edition of Scoreboard. We were talking to Queenies John, a former Trinidad and Tobago player, and now the program manager for Rugby America. Well, you know, rugby in South, but eventually it will have. But if you're interested in rugby, you can always contact Rainbow Rugby Club or Exiles in Gasparilla, or if you're not sure, give us a call here at ACT. We will direct you to a good team and somewhere where the sport is being taught. If you missed any part of this program, remember tomorrow at 1 p.m. it's a repeat, and we are here next week, Tuesday, same time, 8 p.m. Join us there. Have a blessed week ahead.
Thank you.